Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Wooseok. Today, on behalf of Medical Aesthetic Journal in Korea, I have the honor of interviewing Dr. Philip Werschler, a renowned dermatologist from United States, who is visiting Korea for Korea Derma Symposium. And with extensive experience in the field of dermatology and the focus on clinical research, Dr. Werschler has made significant contributions to the advancement of dermatological practices. Today, we have the privilege of delving into his expertise and gathering insights on various topics. So the first question is, as a renowned dermatologist in the United States, could you please share us the area you have focused on during your clinical research?
Oh, sure. Well, Dr. Ko, thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you to Laser Optech for inviting me to Korea, and I very much look forward to Korea Derma. It's my first visit to Korea, and it's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
So, as they say, when the weather is nice, everything else goes well.
Yeah.
It's interesting in my journey through my practice career. I have been involved in mostly clinical research. So the clinical research with FDA trials mostly has been some on medical dermatology, some on cosmetic dermatology, and some on energy devices. And over my career, I've seen many new things develop, and I have been part of that process for many of them. Probably more so on the cosmetic side than the medical side, although I practice a lot of medical dermatology as well. And I do think that it's there's great overlap between medical and cosmetic dermatology. And that sometimes we put artificial walls in between the two.
Yeah.
And that I don't think that is, I don't think it's necessary or realistic. I think a good example would be some of the very earliest laser technology, which was the pulse dye laser for the port wine stain birthmarks.
Yes.
And after we treated most of the birthmarks over the years, we had all those lasers. And we started using those to treat spider veins and rosacea and other things.
Yes.
So that's what I mean by that there's a great overlap between the two. So my research interests have led me to be part of the process of the FDA approval and the launch of the different drugs and the different devices into the marketplace. And it's been through that I've had the opportunity to meet many colleagues. I travel extensively, mostly within the US, but also in Asia and in Europe. And so I think one of the biggest advantages that I've had has been working with industry. So in my career, on a number of occasions, I have gone and worked full-time or part-time in industry and then have come back to the practice. And it gives you a different perspective because when you are on the outside of industry looking in, I think that it's common for all physicians and for dermatologists to ask, well, why doesn't the company do this? Why doesn't the company do that? And then you don't really understand why not. But when you work in industry and you're looking at it from the inside out and you understand the different constraints, the different restrictions, the different challenges that you have as industry in terms of launching products, marketing products and that, it gives you a very balanced perspective. Sometimes we say it's like looking at both sides of the coin. And so that's probably been the most interesting part of my journey.
Oh, it sounds great. I also think the same thing, that everything have changed from physics to biology. That is in between what you are expressed and explained. In between, there is no wall between physics, property, and biological reactions, and both. And skin booster, toxin, and any kind of device, it can be applied to treat our problem, any dermatological problems, cosmetic or in addition to the disease status.
Absolutely, absolutely,
So,
I agree.
I think what you said is the most great explaining the status nowadays dermatology. Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So your expertise in injectable procedures such as fillers, Botox, and skin boosters is widely recognized. Could you tell us which products you have been using and why?
Yes, I've been doing injectables for my entire career. Part of it is that I was lucky because when I trained, and I trained at George Washington University, when I trained, the department was very open-minded towards cosmetic procedures. That's not always the case. A lot of times in training, the residents and the fellows don't get a lot of exposure or experience to cosmetic procedures because there's so much to learn on the medical side. They say that if you want to learn cosmetics, you can do that later. So I started off and this was in the late 1980s when lasers were in medicine were very new. We didn't really understand things like selective photothermolysis. We didn't understand targeting. Mostly they were CO2 lasers that just cut and burn tissue. And then in the fillers, we only had collagen. And that was the collagen that was made from cows. And while it had a lot of marketing in Hollywood, you know, on the movies and things like that, there actually were very few people who actually received collagen injections. But I was lucky to train in the injections. And we, of course, at that time, we didn't have any neurotoxins. And skin boosters, I think, were more of a topically applied. It was really before microneedling or superficial injections or things like that really hit the States. Those came in large part from Europe, especially France. They did a lot of mesotherapy and that. And that wasn't even really known about at the time. So I was in clinical research at a time when many of the products that we have today were were being developed and were being approved. And because I did the trials on those products for the FDA, that allowed me to be part of the process of introduction to the marketplace. And we had to learn how to use these products. I think once a product is approved, that's just the very beginning. And then you have a very narrow approval, and what you do is you widen the use of the product, whether it's an energy device like the Piccolo, or whether it is a toxin like Botox, or whether it is a filler. And so the process of learning about these products, it takes a while. It's just like a small child starting school, and they have to learn to read and write and do math, and they also have to learn to interact with other children and all of that. It's a process that takes a long time. I think it's the same is very much true in the aesthetics world, and we didn't really know how to use these things. A good example is fillers, is dermal fillers. And at first we saw all dermal fillers as being just different versions of the same thing. And then we learned that that really wasn't the case, that you had dermal fillers, mostly the hyaluronic acids, that occupy space for a while and then they're broken down and they go away. You have fillers that are dermal stimulators or collagen stimulators or biostimulators. There's about 10 different names for them. And at first, the marketplace didn't really understand the difference. And my late very good friend, Vic Narakar, and I, many years ago, I think it was in 2008, we were having a discussion on this. And we decided to write a paper and make a poster that sort of separated dermal fillers into those that were replacement filling, like the HAs, and those that were collagen stimulators that would actually help grow tissue. And that was, I think, the first categorization of filler injectables that put some science behind things. And you know, fortunately, people still use that same way of classifying the products as replacement fillers or stimulatory fillers. What's interesting on the stimulatory fillers, as those are now evolving towards regenerative. And you see the term regenerative medicine, which I usually think of more as platelet-rich plasma, as stem cells and things like that. But that is now being also used by industry to help describe anything that helps to biostimulate the body. So early on in lasers, the technology was to burn things away. And then we learned about selective photothermolysis. And then we learned how to target different chromophores in the tissue. And if you fast forward to today, you see the world of energy devices. And I use the term energy device to include lasers. It includes ultrasound technologies. It's all of the different energy things. And sometimes it's like with cars. You look out in the parking lot and you see all these cars, you call them all cars. But they may be Hondas and Toyotas, or maybe Porsches and Ferraris, but we say cars. So we say lasers. But there are many, many different kinds of energy that are used because we learn to use energy in different ways. And then we also have learned to use energy in combination with other products, either to make the target better, thicker, more reachable by the energy device, or to complement the energy device for better results. And then within those products that we use, most commonly it's toxins and fillers, but I think the new area is the use of the term regenerative medicine. But in the States, at least, the term regenerative medicine is not very well defined. It's sort of whatever, it means whatever you want it to be. You know, if someone says, are you happy? Well, you can be happy in life. You can be happy because your last meal was very good. You can be happy with your family and your children. You can be happy. There's ways to be happy. And I think in regenerative, there's many ways that you can define regenerative, and they may be very different from each other, but I think that's common when you're first starting in a new area, a new technology, and going forward, I think much of the regenerative work is going to be focused on combination technologies. And that will be energy of some kind or another, and it will be the different, probably more biostimulator type of injectables, and it'll also be autologous products, your own body parts, your own platelets, your own stem cells and exosomes, and that market is really, really developing. To me, looking at this with the perspective of going back 30 plus years from the days of a little bit of collagen injection and chemical peels and not a lot more, and to where we are today, and then projecting forward what are we going to have? My thought is it'll be a lot of regenerative things that'll be used with technology that we have, and that will change the way that we approach the treatment of cosmetic conditions, but also medical conditions. So there again is that overlap. And sometimes I think cosmetic leads the way and it becomes more medical. Sometimes medical leads the way and it becomes more cosmetic. So it's a two-way street. But that's what I see is coming to the next phase of this.
You covered overview of what happened in the past and what will happen in next maybe 10 or 20 years. And let's move on to the company Laser Optech.
Yes.
We understand that you are a key doctor for Laser Optech Piccolo Premium. Could you provide us with more information on how you became associated with this prestigious role?
Of course. So I have a lifelong friend, Christopher Dalton, who we have worked together in many different ways over many decades, and when I guess it was about 4 or 5 years ago, Chris had asked me what I knew about Laser Optech, and I said, well, I don't really know anything about Laser Optech. I don't think they have a very large footprint within the United States. And of course, in the past, I have worked with many of the other larger energy device companies. And at that time, Chris was telling me that he thought that the engineering and the science behind Laser Optech was really at the front of the technology companies, and he found it very interesting. And then over the next couple of years, we worked together more and more. I met some of the leadership of Laser Optech. I was at the ASLMS meetings and met more. And then we started talking in particular about Pico. So the Pico laser market, it's interesting. People tend to be attracted to the latest new shiny thing. And so something new comes out and everybody goes, oh, I have to have that because it's new. And in many ways, it's how our fashion industry works. It's the way the car industry works. There's always a new model. There's always something better. So from a technology standpoint, I can remember 6, 7 years ago, something like that, hearing all about Pico. And at the time, in going to the meetings and talking to colleagues who had Pico laser, and this was not the Laser Optech, this was not Pico Low. And what I heard was that it was disappointing, that it didn't do the things that were promised. Reliability was an issue. Cost was an issue, very exceedingly expensive, especially for the world of dermatology. And I remember talking to Chris at one of the ASLMS meetings and saying, oh, Chris, I don't know about Pico. I think it's kind of disappointing. And what I'm hearing is that it's not meeting expectations. And Chris had said, I think you need to look at our technology more specifically because it's different. And that was really the introduction to the technological advancement of lasers. Share a story with you. One of my patients, she is from Russia, and she is an optical physicist. And her whole career, she's about my age, her whole career, she has spent working with lasers. And it's funny because when she comes to the office sometimes to visit, she likes to look at the lasers. She likes to look at the back panel where they've had the specifications. And for many years, she would say, your lasers are obsolete. These lasers are old. The technology is old. And what we have in the laboratory, what we have in the research centers, what we have in the military is very much more advanced than this. And I said, well, why is that? And I've asked industry leadership that over the years. Part of the problem is cost. Part of the problem is that the FDA has to approve things. They have to give clearance to energy devices to come to the marketplace. That takes years. It takes years of trials, and sometimes it can take years of negotiation. So by the time, it would be like it's 2023, and it would be like if one of the car companies was introducing, you know, a 2013 model car. That technology is already 10 years old, and we've moved a long way from there. But that is the new thing in medicine, and we're sort of stuck with that. So it's been kind of funny how I've seen what she talked about. It really is the reality in many ways of the market, and the way the laser market, at least in the States, works, is that the lasers have to have a long enough career life in order to make them economically sensible. So you want a laser, if you buy one, you want that laser to be a good laser for 5 to 10 years, so you can make the money to pay for it and make some profit. And as new technology comes on board, new technology is always more expensive. And so if the new technology doesn't meet expectations, then you have what we call an expectation performance mismatch. Not a match, but a mismatch. You promise things and you can't deliver. And that was the case for a long time with the laser industry, and that was certainly the case with, as specific examples, with Pico, with fat melting lasers, things like that. And so when Chris had started telling me about the technology, I was very interested. And then actually one of the persons who is a very good friend of mine is Vic Ross from San Diego, as you know. And Vic and I have been very good friends for decades. And it was interesting in talking with him because he knows more about the laser physics and technology than I do. And he was very impressed. In fact, I might say at first he wasn't disbelieving, but he was a little skeptical about could they really do that? You know, like the solid state UVB laser, and that. Well, they're usually not solid state. And how do they do that? How do they get enough power? What's the beam profile? They're more technical questions. So he is one of the people that I go to for advice when I'm getting ready to buy a laser or to do laser studies or things like that. So once he learned more about the technology, he was a believer, and so that carries a lot of weight, and so that's sort of how I got interested. It was initially through a friendship, and then it built on the science and the technology that was then reinforced by KOL endorsements, actually, and as many things are, and so that's it.
So it's a kind of human network, and also the quality of the laser optic and everything is mixed. So finally you became KOL of laser optic
for laser optic, yes.
Laser optic is perceived in Korea as prestigious laser manufacturer known for producing high quality products. How would you rate laser optic based on your experience?
That's an interesting question, because the marketplace in the United States for energy devices is oftentimes thought of as we say, it's all smoke and mirrors, meaning that it's not as much technology based as it is sort of sales promises based, and so laser optic. I remember when I was first talking with Chris about it, I don't know anything about him. Laser companies have a tendency to come and go in the market, either because they fail by technology or they fail by sales, or because they're bought by another company and swallowed up, or because the technology it just really isn't applicable to what we're looking for in dermatology. Sometimes the lasers come out of other fields, out of surgical fields, out of urology, different things, and they think, well, let's try that on the skin. Doesn't always work. So from a reputational standpoint, I still think that laser optech is being introduced to the market, and you can't have a reputation, well, hopefully, until you've been there and done that. And so I think that it's just really, and then we had COVID, and COVID messed everything up. The meetings, the exhibit floor, and the demonstrations, and all of that was just put on hold for a couple of years. And I can remember multiple times when Chris and I would have conversations on the phone because we couldn't travel. So there was the beginning of an introduction, and then there was a delay. Someone hit the pause button, and there was a delay. And it's only really been in the last year or so that things have started to pick up. So the reputation, and actually we just had a conversation about this this morning, that the reputation is beginning to develop, that it is a higher level of sophistication and engineering technology. What many people don't understand in the States is that many of the laser boxes, as we call them, and many of the companies are not proprietary to a particular manufacturer. It's contract manufacturing. The same is true, as you know, with many cosmetic products and many skincare products. You know, there's one company that makes them and brands them to whatever you want. So there's a lot of contract manufacturing, and I'll never forget many years ago for a 532 diode laser, a little one, and it had broken down, and we had a repairman that had come to fix it, and it needed a part. And he said, I can go and get this part, and I'll be back in a little bit. And he actually went to Radio Shack. You know, if you remember Radio Shack, and they're out of business now. But they were like a hobby store to build things. And he said many of the parts in this laser, this was a long time ago, but he said they're not anything special to this laser. They're just components that are sourced from different places, and I think I can get this. And he did, and he fixed it for a part that was, you know, a few dollars because there was nothing special about it. And then on the other side of that, some of the laser manufacturers, they have parts that they source from specialty suppliers, but they won't cross-reference them. You know, it's been a joke in the car world for a long time that many Volkswagen parts fit and work in a Porsche because it's the same family, right? If you know what part number to go for, you can save a lot of money, and you know, you can get that same part. Well, and that's been true for many of the laser boxes. Many of them have been renamed and refaced. I remember one time years ago, one of the lasers that we had, it was a hair removal laser, the company sold. And the new salespeople and technicians came in, and they had a great big decal, like a sticker, to go on the side of the laser that covered up the old name and put the new name on it. And they goes, is it okay if we put this on? And I said, well, sure. And it looked brand new. But it was just repackaged. So technology matters. Technology counts. I think one of the biggest challenges in the medical industry is that your users, the dermatologists, the plastic surgeons, and that are usually not very well trained in physics. They don't really understand laser physics. It's different with medicines because we understand the ingredients and how they work. So what happens is laser technology comes out, and we don't really understand it, but we want to use it. And sometimes the salespeople will tell us how great the technology is when maybe it's not that great. Maybe it's just recycled old technology. And even an experienced laser user may not fully understand that. That's why we have people like Rox Anderson, like Vic Ross, like Susie Kilmer, that we go to because they have a deeper level of understanding than 99% of the rest of us. And so we depend on them to give advice and to give recommendations. And I guess in part, that's what makes a key opinion leader, is that you've taken a deeper dive into it. You've used it, you've tried it in the clinical trials, you have tried it on new things, and you help to develop new ways to treat, new diseases or concerns to treat, combinations of things. And that's very different than just getting to market. So there's a lot of, and I don't mean to be so long in my answer, but there's a lot of levels that you can assess the reputation of a company. And I think in the energy device company, the reputation is built on the service after the sale, which is a direct result of the engineering, the quality of the build, and the reliability. You don't have to have a lot of service. If it works every day, you come in, you turn it on, and it works the way it's supposed to, well, then there's not a lot of interaction with that. When things break a lot, when they don't work the way they're supposed to work, when it's very expensive to repair them, that's what makes, I think, physicians frustrated. Because they paid all this money and it's sitting there broke, and every day they lose money, and that so reputations. There are many old sayings about reputation. They're very hard to earn. They're very easy to lose. Things like that. So I think reputationally, and I think of myself very much as a sort of a marketing person. When I worked in industry, I usually worked on the marketing side. And I think that where Laser Optech is they are developing an excellent science-based reputation that is built on engineering and the quality of the components and technology. And that's different than many. Now, every company will tell you that, our engineering is the best. Our engineers, our scientists are the best. But that's not always true. And I've been around lasers long enough to see early on in the 80s and 90s, a lot of the technology came out of Israel. They had advanced weapons programs, and some of that was a spin-off. Many of the ultrasound technologies have come out of Seattle. They have a big ultrasound industry there. And that begins with the Sonicare toothbrush, the Clarisonic brush, and goes through all kinds of diagnostic and treating ultrasound. So you find that there's different industries in different areas that tend to develop. And then more recently, we're hearing about the quality of the engineering from South Korea, and the sort of advancement of technologies. And as long as we can get them past the FDA in time, as our Russian physicist would say, how obsolete are they? And that. But her comparison is from the laboratory and the Defense Department. And cost is no object. They may only use those lasers for a year or two, and then something else comes along. So it's very different than the retail marketplace. But I think the reputation is being managed well. Much of the reputation is also service after the sale. There are a lot of jokes about that, and I think that you want to have a long-term partnership, and in that partnership is not only the initial sales, but then the install, the training, the ongoing training. the updating, because all technology needs to be updated, and what is the relationship that the company has with the customer across that whole spectrum of things. So it's not just, you can buy lasers very cheaply. There are companies that will sell you 2 or 3 brand new lasers for not very much money. They don't last. They break. There's no repair. There's no service. So it's multifaceted what you look at, and so I think Laser Optech, to summarize, is they've made a good start, and now it's up to them to continue to maintain that momentum going forward, so that they continue to earn that reputation that they're developing.
So, you gave the Laser Optech a very good advice today, I think. So I hope they will maintain the right track and what to do, and became a reliable company in U.S. market, like in Korea. I hope also.
Yes, we want them to stay in the market.